All right, today we're diving deep into an ancient legal mystery, right from the pages of the Talmud. It's a story that's all about a sacred ritual, a really high-stakes offering, and the brilliant minds who had to solve a puzzle that was literally written into the law itself.
So just imagine this for a second. You have one of your most sacred, most fundamental laws, a rule that basically defines your entire week. But then there's this daily ritual that seems to force you to break that very law. That's the core conflict we're digging into today, and it was a real head-scratcher for some of the greatest legal minds of the ancient world.
Okay, first things first, let's set the stage. Our whole investigation centers on a very specific, very unique ritual, the high priest's daily griddle-cake offering. This was a ceremony performed every single day in the ancient temple in Jerusalem.
Now, this wasn't just any old offering. We're talking about 12 loaves, made from fine flour, prepared with incredible care. 6 were offered up in the morning, and the other 6 in the evening. But here's the kicker, the part that sparks our whole mystery. The Talmud makes it clear that all the preparation, the kneading, the forming, the baking, all of it overrides the laws of Shabbat, the sacred day of rest.
And that brings us to our first case file, the Sabbath exception mystery. You have to ask, why? Why is this one offering so important that it gets to break one of the most fundamental laws of Judaism? I mean, this isn't a small thing. It's a huge legal exception, and it needs a rock-solid reason behind it.
So the Talmudic sages, they step into this like a team of ancient legal detectives. And they don't just give one simple answer. Oh no. Instead, they lay out 4 completely different theories, 4 different lines of reasoning to try and crack the case. Let's take a look at the clues they found.
First up is Rav Huna. His argument? It's all about quality control. He looks at a specific word in the text, tufine, and says it means something like baked beautifully. So his logic is pretty straightforward. If you bake these loaves the day before Shabbat, they're going to get stale. They won't be fresh or appealing. They wouldn't be beautiful. So to do the ritual right, you have to bake them on Shabbat itself.
Next, we hear from the school of Rabbi Yishmael, and they come at it from a totally different angle. They're focused on the grammar. The text says, the offering shall be made. And for them, that phrasing is absolute. Shall be made means it must be done, period. No exceptions, no excuses. It's an unconditional command that applies even on Shabbat, and they even say it applies in a state of ritual impurity. It's a powerful argument based purely on the text.
Our third detective, Abaye, pulls out the legal playbook. He uses precedent. He points out that the verse calls this a perpetual meal offering, and he goes, aha, that word perpetual connects it to the other perpetual offerings, the daily sacrifices for the whole community. And since everybody already agrees that those offerings override Shabbat, it just makes sense that this one does too. He's linking a new case to a settled one.
And finally, Rava comes in with a really technical argument. He points out that this whole thing is made on a griddle, which is a sacred vessel. The moment the loaves touch that griddle, they're consecrated. And there's a specific rule. A consecrated offering can't just be left sitting overnight. So you see the problem? If you bake them on Friday, they'd sit there all night and be disqualified by morning. The only way it works is to prepare them fresh on the day they're offered.
But just when you think you solved one puzzle, another one pops up. And this one is even trickier. Let's open case file number 2, the case of the missing oil. Because it turns out the original biblical recipe is actually missing a crucial measurement.
And the problem is laid out right there in the text. The verse says to make the loaves with the oil, but then the Talmud just flat out admits, I do not know how much oil to add. The scripture itself creates this legal black hole. So what do you do? How are you supposed to follow a divine command when a key ingredient is missing from the recipe?
Well, to solve this, the rabbis do what they do best. They start a battle of analogies. They have to find another similar offering where the amount of oil is known, and then argue about which one is the best comparison. And this sets up a really fascinating intellectual showdown.
So 2 main candidates emerge. On one side, you've got the meal offering that comes with libations, which needs a pretty generous 3 log of oil. A log is just an ancient unit of measure. And on the other side, you've got the standard voluntary meal offering, which only needs 1 log of oil. The entire answer to our mystery boils down to this. Which one of these is the better fit?
And this is where it gets really interesting. The sages basically create this legal scorecard, listing out all the characteristics of each offering. And what they find is just wild. The high priest's offering shares 4 key features with the libation offering. It's frequent, it's obligatory, and it overrides both Shabbat and impurity. But it also shares 4 different features with the voluntary offering. It's brought by one person for its own sake, has no wine, and needs frankincense. It's a perfect 4-to-4 tie, a total logical deadlock.
So how on earth do you break a perfect tie? Well, let's look at the logic that finally wins the day, the key that cracks the case. And it requires digging even deeper into the text. The breakthrough comes from this really subtle contradiction they notice in the wording. On the one hand, the phrase "with the oil" seems to hint at a special, maybe even an extra amount. But on the other hand, the simplest, most obvious comparison would be a standard meal offering, which, as we know, only takes 1 log of oil.
And that leads to the crucial question that unlocks this whole thing. How can the same text seem to point towards more oil and also towards less oil, all at the same time? I mean, what gives? This is exactly the kind of intellectual knot that Talmudic logic was designed to untangle.
And this is where Rabbi Shimon comes in with this just absolutely brilliant solution. First, he deals with the contradiction. He explains that the 1 log idea was basically a straw man argument. It was brought up just to be shot down. Second, he refines the search for the right analogy. He says, look, we can't compare it to offerings for bulls or rams, because those use way more flour. That's comparing apples and oranges. And that leads him to his winning move. You have to compare like with like. The high priest's offering uses 1/10 of an ephah of flour. And guess what? The meal offering that goes with a sheep also uses 1/10 of an ephah of flour. It's the perfect match.
And so, the big question. How much oil does that sheep's offering require? 3 log. By finding the most precise, most logical analogy possible, Rabbi Shimon gives the definitive answer. The case of the missing oil is officially closed.
But here's the thing, and this is really the most important takeaway from all of this. This entire incredibly complex debate, it was never just about finding a number. It was about validating a process. The journey through all the competing theories, the deadlocks, the deep dives into the text, that's what gives the final answer its weight and its meaning. The reasoning is every bit as important as the result.
And that kind of leaves us with a final big question to chew on. When we're faced with ancient rules that aren't crystal clear, what really matters more? Finding one definitive answer, or building the rigorous, transparent, and logical argument that gets you there? That's the real intellectual legacy of this debate. And that's our look into this incredible legal puzzle.